On a suddenly not so casual, thirsty Thursday, it is NFL, the extra points, the big show, Thursday Night Football, Week 4, September 26th, 2024. The Shark and the Gun, a huge game in East Rutherford tonight. Come join the chat right here on Sharky Waters Nation. Guns Picks. What's going on, brother?
Yeah, it's back. Week 4, baby. Listen, I'm coming off a lovely week here in week 3, and the momentum is going to carry on into week 4, and we start here on the Thursday show. I think we swept the board on week 3, Thursday Night Football, and we plan on doing it again here with some plays, total, side, and props today. Shark, I'm ready. Let's go.
Absolutely. As I said, East Rutherford, New Jersey, the Route 3 corridor. A lot to discuss here. Throwing it to the gun, a 3-prop special on the notorious Rico Dowdle out of South Carolina. Guns likes the run game tonight. I like the buy hat. Guns picks. Talk to me on this one.
Yeah, I guess, when everybody perceives this thing to be a high-scoring, high-flying passing game, you go down that direction, I'll go down the other side and go and focus on the run where nobody's looking at here. So let's talk about why I like Rico Dowdle today. Looking at opposing running backs versus the New York Giants in the first 3 games. Versus Minnesota, Aaron Jones, 14 carries, 94 rushing yards. He averages 72 rushing yards per game this season. 5 catches and 36 yards, by the way, on the receiving. And then you look at Washington, Brian Robinson had 17 carries, 133 yards. He averages 68.6 yards per game, and he only had 1 catch for 3 yards. Then on the other side with Cleveland, Jerome Ford had 10 carries, 37 yards. He averages 48.3, a little bit of an outlier there, but he had 3 catches and 33 yards, which is above his pay grade in the passing game. So total average versus the New York Giants running backs are 13.6 carries, 88 yards, 3 catches, and 24 receiving yards. That is what the lead running backs are doing to the New York Football Giants. Now, with Rico Dowdle, his average 7.6 carries, 29.3 rushing yards, 2.6 carries, and 19.6 receiving yards. So, and you look at his numbers, and I'll get to the lines here in a second and how it is elevated strictly on the fact that he's facing the Giants. Then you got to look at Dallas. They faced the number 7, the number 19, and the first ranked rushing defenses in the league. And those were how Rico Dowdle got those stats. And the Giants are 27th in rushing yards per carry and 23rd in rushing yards per game. So, like I said, the public perception of the Dallas offensive scheme is this team can't run the ball. This team has to pass the ball. Well, you have to understand in the last 2 games between the New Orleans Saints and the Baltimore Ravens, they were down 2 scores, 3 scores. They had to pass the ball because they were trailing the whole game. So now you get them in this more balanced run to pass ratio. If they get up to a lead, they're not going to be focusing pass. They're going to have a balanced, organized, orchestrated offense that's going to include Rico Dowdle. It's going to include Zeke Elliott in there as well. But I like Rico Dowdle's stats. His over and unders is 38.5 on the rushing yards. So I like the over there, 38.5. I like his carries too, because it's above his average of carries at, like I said, 7.6 carries per game. And the over and under is 9.5. That tells you something there. So over 9.5 carry rushing attempts for Dowdle. And then I'm going to combine the receiving yards and the rushing yards solely on the fact that all the running backs end up getting catches off screen passes because the Giants allow it. Also, that secondary's banged up for the Giants as well. Their top corner, the rookie star for them, not going to be playing in this game. So, yeah, Rico Dowdle over 38.5 rushing yards, over 9.5 rushing attempts, and over 56.5 rushing receiving combined. All half unit plays. Let's go.
Jumping off that, the first time in the history of this show, buying the Cowboys with the buy hat. The buy hat is engaged. Dallas minus 4.5 4 nights ago, minus 5.5 now. Let's talk about it. This is a very interesting psychological discussion. This team, out of nowhere, is an absolutely abysmal home team. 3 consecutive home blowouts. And we're not going to give them that much credit for the game on Sunday, even though the Ravens did almost melt it. That game was a blowout for about 50 minutes. But in that same window, this Dallas team has performed well on the road. And I think go back to week 1 as an example of this. A fairly dominant performance, particularly defensively at Cleveland, 33-17. And go back in the locker room after the Ravens loss. Defensive leader Micah Parsons is sitting there chirping all of his guys. And he has not been great this year at all, only 1 sack. But I think if there was ever a moment this team was going to flip the switch, it's here. And I was actually just saying to our group chat on X, this is not a desperation game from the standpoint of the playoffs being out of the question if they lose tonight, particularly in this division, which appears to be pretty mediocre, potentially over the entire window of the season. This is about professional pride. This is about, do we have any camaraderie in this locker room? Can we lock in? And I think they can, because I think if you go back to last year, this team did perform great on the road in the division. 2-1 ATS, blew out the Giants in week 1, 40-0, got Washington in week 18, 38-10. Their only non-cover was a week 9 game in Philadelphia, took a loss 28-23, but totally dominant performance. 406 yards versus only 292 for Philly. Final 4 drives of the game, Dallas had a 4 and out at the 1-yard line, 4 and out at the 29-yard line, and 1st and 5 at the Philly 6 to close the game. Couple penalties, didn't score. 3 separate possessions, 0 points, should have won that game. Speaking of winning games, Dallas is 13-1 straight up, last 14 against the Giants. Their only outright loss came when Dak Prescott was hurt. Andy Dalton was the QB in that game. 10-4 ATS in that window. And I think more importantly, Dak Prescott playing at MetLife versus Daniel Jones, 2-0 ATS. Only 2-0 ATS because of a lot of injuries on both sides in terms of the quarterback conversation. Go back to 2019, Dallas 37-18, last year 40-0. That's a 29.5 points per game margin in this spot. Dak road versus Danny Jones. And you go to the Giants side of this game, the Giants just beat Cleveland on the road. We thought Cleveland was very good coming into the season. I think the conversation has shifted very quickly. I think Deshaun Watson is borderline not even serviceable at this point. So how impressive was that? Go back to the previous 2 weeks, took a loss in the division, their only divisional game of the year at Washington, and did get blown out in their only home game in week 1, 28-6 by Minnesota. As I said when I opened this segment, this is put up or shut up for Dallas. McCarthy has to prove he's worthwhile of being the coach of this team. Dak needs to ball out. CeeDee Lamb needs to catch the ball and stop whining on the sidelines like an irritable child. And Micah Parsons and this defense need to come together to lock it in. This is a psychological game. The number is fairly irrelevant here. It's short. It's strong. You can argue either side of this. My top play, official play tonight, Dallas -4.5, -5.5. We're going to talk the total here. Guns picks likes the under at 45.5.
Yeah, as much as I want to get on the side, I had to pass on it. Something just feels wrong in my gut. I have no reasoning behind it because every statistical analytics of the trends, of the numbers tells you Dallas. So if there's a lean in one direction, I say Dallas, but I'm not going to take it personally. I'm focused on the total. Let me tell you why. You have the Giants struggled scoring offensively. They only put up 6 points versus Minnesota. Minnesota ranked 13th in opposing yards per game and second in opponent scoring. And then they scored 21 versus Washington. However, Washington's defense is abysmal. 29th in opponent yards per game and 29th in opponent scoring. And then they scored 21 versus the Cleveland Browns. They're 12th in opposing yards per game and 20th in opposing scoring. So they kind of fell under the averages against these teams as far as the scoring is concerned for the New York Giants. With the Cleveland game last week, one of their touchdowns was a result of a fumble recovery that they got at the Cleveland 30-yard line. So it's not them driving the ball down the field. It's just opportunistic opportunities, getting the ball in scoring range and then reluctantly getting a touchdown. In the second half, though, you see the Giants fall apart. Possessions were fumble, 5 punts, and a missed field goal. So, yeah, the Giants had a great first half, 21 unanswered points after the Cleveland Browns scored a touchdown. but they didn't do anything in the second half. Then you have the Giants might try to run a little bit more, knowing that this Dallas defense in the run game is very weak. You saw it last week with Baltimore. You saw it with the Saints, knowing that you can run the ball with them. They currently pass the ball 60% of their plays. So I think this is going to be a little bit more shift to the balance here for the Giants, which really affects why I like the total here. Also got to look at the Giants, 18-6-2 to the under as a home team dating back to 2021, 13-6 to the under off a straight up win. And then you have Dallas 10-6 to the under as an away favorite dating back to 2021, 11-5 to the under off a straight off loss. And then the Giants are 3-0 this year to the under. Now, on the other side, we know Dallas 3-0 to the over this year, but the game last week should have went under. It was 28-6 in the fourth quarter with 10 minutes left, and they scored 19 unanswered points, getting the over. I felt bad for all those guys holding under tickets. The total opened at 44.5. And then you have Dallas that's 5.5, 6-point favorites. I think it's like 5.5 right now. They were this big of a favorite versus New Orleans at home, and the total was 47.5. So you already see the total dropping in this game, knowing it's a divisional game. It dropped 2 points. They had 47.5 last two games. I think because they're going on the road, it's going to drop. Remember, their first road game was 42 versus the Cleveland Browns. So this is under all over it. Like I said, that when these guys meet in MetLife, it's always a low-scoring game. More so a lopsided element with Dallas and not a lot of scoring from the Giants. So, yeah, I like the under on this one. Dallas, New York Giants, under the total 45.5.
Yeah, and I think that fits a bunch of the narrative points that I was putting on record with the game side, where Dallas defense has to show up here. Just gave up 44 points at home to the Saints, backed up by 28 points against Baltimore. And that was, we talk about cash, quick, fast. Those were points, quick, fast. First half points. I think that also brings us to another conversational point, which we're not going on record officially with, but I think that Dallas has to come out here early and set the tone. So I think the first half has significant merit tonight. And I think in terms of the total, a couple interesting points Guns mentioned. I just want to reiterate because I thought it was just difficult for me to look at. Giants are 3-0 versus the under. Dallas is 3-0 versus the over. So you say to yourself, what gives? Which one of these is going to reverse? And as we mentioned, we think Dallas defense has to step up here. They have looked, I mean, as I said, not necessarily unprofessional, but more so just splintered emotionally. I think there's a significant disconnect here, and they got to get it together. And why wouldn't they get it together back where they find their comfort zone against divisional opponents, against non-playoff teams? This cluster of games that they've taken these horrific beatdowns in their home stadium over the last, go back to the playoffs last year. These are all playoff caliber teams. The Saints didn't make the playoffs last year, but they were tied at 9-8 to win the NFC South. So this is where Dallas also performs much better, as they should, versus weaker competition. So we love Dallas tonight at 4.5, 5.5. The under 45.5, and the gun, Rico Dowdle, over 9.5 attempts, over 38.5 rushing yards, and over 56.5 receiving and rushing yards. That's the show for tonight. 15 fast minutes. Thursday Night Football, NFL Extra Points, the big show, week 4, a big one tonight in East Rutherford. We will be back tomorrow night, as always. Knowledge for College. A lot of great looks this week. We're coming into full conference season, numbers and narratives, and of course, 10 a.m. or 10:30, depending on the odds fellow on Sunday morning. The big show, an hour plus every game. We got a lot of looks in the NFL this week. We're starting to really get into our flow. It will be a great week. Guns Picks, a pleasure as always. Close them out with some words, and let's dominate.
Yeah, one more thing I just wanted to talk about because you brought up the first half. So I went and just looked at the line on this one. The line is sitting right at 3.5. Of course, the full game line is 5.5. 63.6% of the line is weighted on the first half. It gives a huge indicator that this is going to be a big time first half from Dallas. And then we'll see what happens with the rest of the game. But if there was a way to play this one in the first half, you got to play the Dallas side. But that is my opinion, not an official play. But I want to thank everybody in the chat that came in. Peter Grozny, a true gun disciple, a true shark disciple, a true everything. Team Cat Whisperer, Ziggy Balls, Christopher Boucher, and is it Labron? I can't read. I only read numbers. I don't read words. But that's going to do it here for the Thursday night edition of the Extra Point. Like Shark said, we will be back. Knowledge for college. A lot of good looks in college football. And, of course, the Extra Point Sunday, 10 a.m., 10:30 a.m., depending on when we can get the odds fellow back from his flag football. I think hasn't got a win yet. We'll see if he gets one on Sunday. But good luck with your plays. Let's cash some tickets. Let's dominate the board. And as always, let's keep dancing. Bang.